All right, folks. So there's a really, really important article that is out today that's actually the New York Times, all right? And it talks about presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, Elizabeth Warren, all right? And it has to do with Elizabeth Warren basically saying that she will not be taking any fundraiser dollars. She won't be doing any of the big fundraisers where you basically charge like $2,700 for entry and a plate for dinner or whatever, and you get a bunch of rich people to max out their donations. She basically said, I'm not going to be doing that. Everybody, especially the establishment, which is really interesting because they don't give Bernie any credit for doing that, but they gave Warren credit for doing that. Really weird stuff. But a missing piece that a lot of people don't explain to you is basically that she's only doing that in the primary. She's not doing that in the general election, so she will be hosting fundraisers where she takes a bunch of money, and she might even just be straight up taking PAC money. I'm not even sure. Trying to be sort of charitable in a way in which it wouldn't be, she would not be taking PAC money, but I don't really see necessarily a way around that, and I've been trying to explain that to you. In addition, there was an article posted the other day that said that Elizabeth Warren is actually in secret contact with Hillary Clinton during her election. So, keep that in mind, folks. This is the stuff that we're dealing with here. But this New York Times article, it's titled, How Elizabeth Warren Raised Big Money Before She Denounced Big Money. It says, Miss Warren wooed wealthy donors for years, stockpiling money from fundraisers, and has used $10.4 million from her 2018 Senate race to underwrite her 2020 bid. So this is by Shane Goldmacher. It's a very good article here. So we're going to read some of this. It says, on the highest floor of the tallest building in Boston, Senator Elizabeth Warren was busy collecting big checks from some of the city's politically connected insiders. It was April 2018, and Miss Warren, up for re-election, was at a breakfast fundraiser hosted for her by John M. Connors Jr., one of the old guard power brokers of Massachusetts. Soon after, Miss Warren was in Manhattan doing the same. There would be trips to Hollywood and Silicon Valley, Martha's Vineyard in Philadelphia, all with fundraisers on the agenda. She collected campaign funds at the private home of at least one California mega donor and was hosted by another in Florida. She held finance events until 2 weeks before her all but assured re-election last November. Then, early this year, Ms. Warren made a bold bet that would delight the left. She announced she was quitting this big money circuit in the 2020 presidential primary, vowing not to attend private fundraisers or dial up rich donors anymore. Admirers and activists praised her stand, but few noted that she had built a financial cushion by pocketing big checks the years before. The open secret of Ms. Warren's campaign is that her big money fundraising through 2018 helped lay the foundation for her anti-big money run for the presidency. Last winter and spring, she transferred $10.4 million in leftover funds from her 2018 Senate campaign to underwrite her 2020 run, a portion of which was raised from the same donor class she is now running against. So, there's a bunch of different stuff here that talks about this. It talks about, I guess, the recruiting of, rich people who recruit. Basically, there will be people who are rich mega donors who are like, who support a certain candidate, and they're basically like, hey, Obama, or hey, Warren, or hey, Pete Buttigieg, I'm going to pick up a bunch of cash for you. I'm going to recruit a bunch of other max donors, and I'm going to bundle them all together. They're called bundlers, and they bundle all this cash together to donate to the candidate. And, it talks about a bunch of this stuff. It says, Mr. Rendell said he'd recruited donors to attend an intimate fundraising dinner for Miss Warren last year at Barclay Prime, Philadelphia Steakhouse, where the famed cheesecake steak goes for $120. He said he received a glowing thank you letter from Miss Warren afterward. So it says, and this is Mr. Rendell co-hosted Mr. Biden's first fundraiser this spring. Miss Warren's campaign sent brickbats deriding the affair as a, quote, a swanky private fundraiser for wealthy donors, the likes of which she now shuns. Quote, she didn't have any trouble taking our money the year before, Mr. Rendell said. All of a sudden, we were bad guys and power brokers and influence peddlers in 2018. We were wonderful. So this is fascinating. So this is a guy right here. Okay, he's former governor of Pennsylvania, and he's now supporting Joe Biden. And so I guess he did a fundraiser for Elizabeth Warren for her last Senate run. And after that fundraiser, she sent him a big thank you note. And in this situation, in which he's supporting now, doing the same thing for Biden, where he's fundraising for Joe Biden, she calls them, a swanky private fundraiser, and basically disavows them and goes after them when she was doing the exact same thing in the prior year. And so it's important to note that, yeah, she was doing this in her run for president. That is what she was doing, all right? She was taking this money, this, very big donor money for her senatorial campaigns, and that's very significant. I'm not even sure, I don't remember what the numbers were for her election, to be fair, but I really highly doubt that Elizabeth Warren needed to actually take a bunch of big donor cash to be able to win her election. I'm pretty sure it was going to be a surefire win for her, so I'm not even really sure why she would decide to do that in the first place. But not only is it important to understand the history of that, you also have to understand that she has transferred $10.4 million of her senatorial campaign funds over to her presidential campaign. So that means she has, in part, funded her campaign from big money dollars. So while she hasn't done any fundraisers or anything like that, she has taken that money that has funded her campaign in part. And so this is a bit of an expose on that. I actually did not know about this until now. But, she has been meeting with Hillary Clinton behind the scenes. She had met with Hillary Clinton months ago, about 5 months ago, in Hillary Clinton's attempt at basically inserting herself and her influence into the 2020 election. So that tells you what's going on. We also saw a piece in the New York Times, the same publication, in which they explained that basically Elizabeth Warren is sending letters to the establishment and letting them know, hey, I'm not looking to break the system like Bernie Sanders is. I just want to lead the Democratic Party. I'm not going to fundamentally change the Democratic Party. And when we talk about the negatives of Elizabeth Warren, right, there's a lot of them, all right? The biggest one is hands down that she will be doing big dollar fundraisers like she did right here. This guy right here, okay? This former governor who did this, right? Who did this fundraiser for Joe Biden, all right? Who contributed $4,000 to Warren in 2018. He's going to be doing what he did for Warren in 2018, except in the general election, not in the primary. Like, anybody who takes any sort of corporate money is corrupting themselves, and that is why it's completely unacceptable. Because once you take that cash, there are tetherings involved, and that becomes the problem. So anybody who sells themselves out to rich people and does not just take small dollar contributions from regular people is unacceptable, and that's really a sort of 3 strikes you're out type of thing, except it's a 1 strike, obviously. But I can't, that's not okay. And so is Elizabeth Warren the second best candidate in the race? Yeah, obviously. I mean, no one comes close to Warren and the other candidates. But just because you're better than, Mayor Pete or Cory Booker or whoever, whatever, Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, that's not something to be happy about. That's just oh, you're just the second best. All the other candidates suck really, really bad. Amy Klobuchar, John Delaney, these people are horrible. So just because she's better than them, it really doesn't mean anything. It really just doesn't mean anything, to be honest with you. It really doesn't. So, is she sort of the second best progressive, if you will? I guess so. But you also have to understand the differences between the two candidates in the race. That's what you must understand. You have to understand the differences between Elizabeth Warren and the differences between Bernie Sanders, and this is one of them. Bernie Sanders won't be taking any big dollar donations or fundraiser dollars in the general or the primary. Elizabeth Warren, on the other hand, will be taking in the general. So I can't trust that. And, am I going to vote for Elizabeth Warren in the scenario that she's the presidential candidate in 2020? Maybe. I'm not sure. If I do, it's going to be very hesitatingly. Now, I'm in California, so I have a bit of a leeway here. But, maybe. It's possible, but I have to tell you, I wouldn't be doing it very enthusiastically, because to me the most key foundational sort of position of a candidate is to be getting out of is to be not taking any corporate PAC money, not doing any big dollar fundraisers, etc., etc. And so when you violate that, I you've lost me pretty much.